So outside we were having a conversation. I'm like, we needed the entire session to have this conversation. So obviously what we'll try to do is to frame the topic under this theme or the event's name, which is business to brand. So that means there has to be a transition or there has to be a shift in thinking from business to brand. What's holding our conversation is this idea of authenticity, purpose, and profit. Obviously, these are three distinct topics that can be unpacked throughout the entire day. So what we'll try to do is to not lose the topic and get to the essence of what it is that we're trying to do. And the holding question is, can brands have it all? Especially when you transition in terms of your mindset from business to brand. So before we get into the discussion, how I define a business is basically an idea that tries to create value for customers and businesses. With that in mind, how I define brand is how you do that, which is linked to your values, your ethics, and I like this term called philosophy. When we're all in business, you know when they say there's clutter in business or it's saturated, it's when everybody has the same idea. When you start to speak about brand, now you're starting to differentiate yourself, make yourself distinct, and I think it is through this concept called philosophy. So I'd like you to think about brand as a philosophy, as a way of thinking. To kickstart, I'd love the ladies to, by the way, this is the best panel. You know, when we're having a conversation, I'm like, it's a powerhouse. These incredible. If you go to LinkedIn and check the bio, it's like, how can one person have so much experience? It's insane. I'd like the ladies to introduce themselves. I see the guys are very finicky about time. So 1 to 2 minutes. Your name, your current role, and just to give the audience a bit of context in terms of other roles that you've held. I'll give you an example. My name is Bogosi Motshegwa. I'm currently Chief Strategist and founder of Thinkineer, which is a strategy consultancy. Before that, I worked at various agencies, handling various brands, including PepsiCo and other brands.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the best panel ever. My name is Zakithi Mncwango. I'm currently the Category Marketing Manager on cocoa malt beverages, working for Nestle Africa. Before this, I was at PepsiCo, working on number 1 Ekasilako, knickknacks. And prior to that, I spent a long journey in cosmetics, working on brands like Estee Lauder, etc. So,
good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nondumiso Mabece. I have over 26 years experience as a brand marketer, working with really exciting brands in South Africa, Santam, MultiChoice, FNB, Momentum, SABC. Whew, I can keep counting. Currently finalizing my PhD on marketing. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And I can talk about marketing for the whole day, so I will really need those guys at the back to keep me focused.
Hi, everybody. So my name is Nomzamo from Prime Media. So currently, looking after the marketing from Prime Media out of home. Before that, had a stint abroad. So went to Amsterdam to have a little bit of a party there for 2 years. Prior to that, I've worked in financial services. I've worked at a very great agency called Ogilvy, and worked for other transportation and government businesses. But yes, all things marketing, brand. Nondumiso used to be my client, so when she says she can talk about marketing and brand, she's one of the most passionate people I know about marketing. So, but yeah, that's my 2 minutes.
Amazing, thank you. So what I like about, the ladies talking about the experience is that I think the titles that they currently hold don't do justice to their depth and the value that they bring. So yes, we are having this topic, but I promise you, the ladies can talk about anything. So what I'd like us to do quickly is 1 minute, 2 minutes. I'm going to give each of you, just to unpack the topic. We'll start with you, and you, if you can just tell us what is authenticity and how does it relate to brand building. And then Nondumiso, you'll speak about purpose and profits. How does it relate to brand building? And then Nomzamo, can brands have it all?
Thank you. So I think if we talk about authenticity and brand building, you're really talking about one of the most compelling subject matters you have in marketing boardrooms today. And the crux of it is it's about integrated alignment. It's about the fundamental understanding that brands don't create culture, they participate in it. The 90s was a period of time. There's a subset of brands we remember the 90s for: FUBU, Tommy Hilfiger, Nike. None of these brands own the 90s. The culture exists outside of these brands. So when brands behave authentically, they participate in curating and creating and influencing community, which drives culture and then can lead to other pillars like profitability, revenue generation, etc. But the fundamental idea is that brands do not create or own the culture, right? You are an active participant in developing the community that surrounds it. There's great examples we have locally, brands like Castle Light and the platforms they created like Castle Light Unlocks. This is a really kind of pointed example of what it means to say a brand has put in view a cultural moment or opportunity and said, we're gonna be a voice to what that moment is.
Okay. Just on that, before...
Hi.
Wait. I'm actually helping you. I'm moving on. Nondumiso, just a punchline. Just a punchline on, she says something about brands don't create, they exist in culture. What would be your punchline when it comes to authenticity?
Authenticity is lived.
Okay, I like that.
Just show the way you show up every day. It's about me and you, right? So brands behave like people, and it's about how they show up every day, and that's authenticity. So authenticity is lived.
I love that. For me, it speaks to the idea that it's not contrived. There's truth to it. So if brands want to be authentic, there has to be some sort of transparency and realness into that. Thank you for that. Nomzamo?
Punchline.
Mm-hmm.
So I think authenticity is actually consistency. So as a brand, you need to show up consistently, both internally, both externally, everything that you're doing. So we did briefly speak about this outside, about you could put the greatest campaign out there, you could put the greatest messaging out there, the biggest stunt, and you're on the top of Table Mountain and you've done the biggest stunt, but if your people are not happy, are you being authentic? So if you're out there and you're talking about sustainability, feeding children, doing all these wonderful things, are you being consistent as a brand, both internally and externally? So yeah, authenticity is consistency for me.
Amazing. So just to wrap up this conversation around authenticity, I worked on the African Bank repositioning campaign, where we shifted from we are you to audacity to believe. To get to audacity to believe, we actually had to go back to the origins of what African Bank was. African Bank was an institution that didn't go to market or didn't exist to add to what the options were for customers. There was a gap in the market. There wasn't a bank for black people, to put it bluntly. And therefore, how we got to, how when we try to reposition, sometimes we try to look in the future. For African Bank, it was about going back to the founders' ideology and philosophy. So I think authenticity, if you're building your brand, is an important thing in your attempt to transition from moving from this commoditized space of business to a space where you can become an isolated option where people can say, I want your brand. Amazing, thank you, I love that. So now to move on to purpose and profit. How would you define purpose? What is it? And profit, and do they link? Are they interlinked? Can we, how do we deal with them?
You know, the point you just made about going back, in African Bank going back, I'll get to purpose in 2 seconds.
Okay.
The point about going back speaks to what we mentioned when we we're speaking about outside. It's about DNA, right? Brands, again, are like people. They have to have a DNA. If your brand doesn't have a DNA, it becomes very difficult to have something that anchors you. So your DNA is what you go back to in times of crisis. It's what you go back to in times of refocus. It's what you want to look like, right? At the end of the day, it's the thing that makes you start thinking we're not heading in the right direction because we are starting to steer away from what our DNA is meant to be. Mm-hmm. So I think it's so important to be anchored in something. Your DNA cannot change as a business. Let's get to purpose. So I like looking at brands across the board, and I like using different brands as examples. I always give Pet a heart attack. So I look at brands like Woolworths, and the beauty of authenticity and the beauty of purpose is that it's not perfect, right? We try, we don't always get it right. Again, like people. I mean, every day we wake up and we go, I'm going to be a good person, going to be a nice person, and something happens, and then you're shouting at someone who's making you drive badly on the road. Now, doesn't make you a bad person because you lost your temper, right? You recalibrate, you still continue to have a good day, but for the moment there, you lost your temper. So having a purpose is just that thing that helps you to guide what you're doing. Look at a brand like Woolworths. They sell quality, right? Woolworths builds quality into how they source their food, how they source the clothing that they make, the kind of clothing that they make. Have you owned an item of clothing from Woolworths and kept it for years, where you eventually go, okay, I think now it's time to give you away because I have owned you for enough winters. Like, you give it to somebody else and you literally see them wearing it for many years to come because it's still quality. Recent example, I gave a coat to a lady I know, and I see her wearing the coat, and in my head I'm thinking, how does that coat still look that good after so many years, right? But it's because it's quality, and at the end of the day, it's what is built into their business, because they try. That's their purpose. They give you quality, whether it's in the food that they sell, whether it's in the clothing that they sell. So ultimately, it's not because, it might not always be perfect. You might buy a product from them that is not necessarily the highest quality, and it's one thing, right? And it's one thing that might not necessarily live up to their standard. But because they do have that purpose, they do have that thing that they're working towards that is built into their DNA. It's what they live up to, and it's what drives their profits. So I do believe that when you are a business that is strongly rooted in a purpose, and a purpose that ultimately benefits me as a customer, because as a customer, I might not know what your purpose is, but I come back and I continue coming back to buy from your business because of what it stands for in my life. Because ultimately, we also get lost as businesses and as brands in thinking that they'll keep coming back because we are so great. They'll keep coming back because of whatever reason. Ultimately, we are so cash-strapped as consumers that I just want to spend my money where I can afford to spend my money. I want to spend my money where I know that whatever product I buy will last or will serve the need that I need served at the time. Therefore, it's important that as brands and as businesses, we make sure that whatever products we're selling, whatever it is that we're putting out into the market, yes, it's purpose-driven, but at the end of the day, it's serving the purpose in the person's life, and continuously we attract them back because they are getting the value that they're looking for, ultimately.
Okay, I want you to double-click on something, but I want Zakithi and Nomzamo to think about their punchlines with regards to purpose and profit. So are you saying that it is purpose that informs the business model or how the business operates, but I also feel like there's a connection between, purpose and authenticity. But the question is, how does then purpose, at a practical level, how does it then help me as a business owner to grow my brand and ultimately my business?
When you're starting a business, or when you're doing anything, when you're starting a business, when you're starting out as an influencer, when you're starting a job, they always say, don't start with the money. Start with why you're doing it. So purpose goes back to that. Right now, if you are a young person starting out looking for work, you don't start out and say, I'm looking for the job that's going to pay me 200,000 rand, right? Why are you doing it? I'm doing it because I love engineering. I'm doing it because I love marketing. Yes, money is important, but you're doing it because there's something that you want to achieve. You start with the why, and it's the same with any business that you start. You don't go starting a business because you want to become a multimillionaire. Yes, you want the money. Yes, you would ultimately want to become the multimillionaire, but the purpose of why you're starting that business is what drives you. So no, purpose is not the only thing that will be baked into your business, but it's a very key ingredient into why you're starting your business in the first place.
Okay. Is it not like an airy-fairy philosophy? If you look at the context of South Africa, the realities, there's so many challenges in building your business, running your business. How does then purpose anchor you into, keep going? Because ultimately you can start off and then it's like, then it starts to feel like passion, where it's like, no, it's your passion, it's not business. It's like there's business and then there's purpose. But it sounds like you're saying it's baked into, regardless of the size or the industry that you're in, whatever you're doing, purpose goes within your business.
It's part of your roots. So if it's not there, any wind that comes will blow you away. So if a tree doesn't have roots, it can be blown away by any kind of wind, right? So it doesn't mean that just because it's sunny and the tree is standing on a windy day, it wouldn't get affected. So it doesn't mean that if you start a business and you're successful and you're like, I don't have a purpose and therefore will keep continuing, your business is not likely to survive without a purpose. It's impossible.
Amazing. Nomzamo, your punchline regarding to purpose and profit?
I think purpose is tied very closely to integrity. And we were speaking about integrity as well outside, because I think in the times we live in, where transparency and honesty and is this really real lives, we live in a world of AI where we're not really sure what's real. So your purpose is the thing that's going to hold you honest. It's the thing that's going to hold you honest in the world of bribery, in a world of AI, in a world of it's tough, there's political turmoil, Trump is now the president. Purpose is the thing that keeps you honest and keeps you serving the people that you committed to serve and keeps you honest to those communities. So just when you spoke about Woolworths, Lihle was on stage from the Maxhosa brand, and she was sharing how she shops at Poetry. And she mentioned that store, and I said, I really love that store, and I buy clothes from there. And she said, I also love the clothes from that store, and I buy there often. She then said she had bought a garment, and the garment was torn. And she took it back to the store, and she just, wanted to exchange it, so she didn't make a scene or anything like that, but she wanted to exchange the skirt. And, she just was speaking to another lady who worked in the store, for the lady in the store to then turn around and say, "Oh, Chomi, this thing is from China, mos." And she didn't laugh, actually, because she actually thought, one of the USPs or the grounding kind of values or pillars of that specific brand was it being a homemade brand. And her purpose is that I support local brands. I buy clothes, and her own individual purpose is to buy South African-made brands, and that's her purpose. So she felt that the brand isn't being authentic. The brand isn't being consistent. They're not sticking to their purpose because they started off as a little store off in Cape Town. So if you guys know kind of that story. So they started off as a little store in Cape Town, and obviously they've obviously expanded. But one of the things that she just went on to say was, as much as the employee just threw out that statement, it was actually a fundamental it caused brand damage, you know, like as silly as kind of saying like, oh, this was just made in China. It caused fundamental damage, yes, to one customer, but maybe fundamentally then to many other customers. So your purpose is the one thing that will keep you that, hey, making these dresses are really expensive, you know, making them in Cape Town is quite expensive, but this is our purpose. Our purpose is to support local, you know, business makers or local seamstresses or, you know, creating jobs in our own country. So I think your purpose is the thing that actually just, you know, if I think of my punchline, purpose is integrity.
Amazing. I think the dimension that you've added is that it extends to the various stakeholders, which one of them is your customers.
So it is an airy-fairy, and I know, you know, marketing, we love vision, mission, values, purpose, but it isn't airy-fairy because it touches the customers.
Amazing.
So purpose, profit, passion, all the P's can live neatly together, I think, in the most successful brands. Taking a stance for any brand is extremely polarizing, but it's the brands who have a consistent stance that we trust. I want to reference, to start with, a brand like Patagonia. I don't know, who knows Patagonia in the room? Boom. Started off as a little rock climbers brand, and the founder had a very compelling vision about sustainable sourcing and fashion. One of their most prominent ads happened during Black Friday, where they put together their highest selling windbreaker, akin to a K-Way jacket, and the tagline read, "Do not buy this jacket." And they were taking a stance against over-consumerism that happens during the Black Friday period. What ended up happening is people bought more of the jacket and they sold more of it. It's just, for me, a small example of how you are consistent in your stance and your purpose and your brand DNA and your ideals. And some of them aren't always lofty, right? We reference very lofty brands where it's about sustainable sourcing. Sometimes the ideal could be, I worked on a brand called Avery Schlein, which is a direct selling cosmetics brand. The fundamental vision of that brand is, there's a woman who earns less than 4,000 Rand a month. She is often a single mother, and what she has to do at the end of the month is make sure her household, the lights are on, the water is on. How do I price lipstick to make that work for her? And one of the fundamental principles of that business was, lipstick on lips is food on tables. What a compelling idea. Everything that business does via pricing, via direct advertising sticks to that. Many moons ago, back in the Whitey Basson era of Checkers, it actually made front page news in this country. We missed those days. But there was a problem with the lettuce at Checkers. It was wilting extremely quickly. It wasn't fresh. Whitey Basson himself left his armored chair and his boardroom, and he went to a Checkers store and he said, "This lettuce is a comment on our value chain. It's a comment to our consumers on what we value if the lettuce goes off so quickly. So actually, as Checkers, we're going to look into our lettuce value chain sourcing." And they use lettuce as the principle to build the Checkers of today, this better and better. They started by shelf, by category, by product, becoming the better and better Checkers, you know, that now outpaces every single other brand in the retail space. So purpose and profit can live very neatly together consistently if they are in line with your brand DNA. You cannot wake up and pick sustainable sourcing as a trend you want to jump on as a brand if it's never been part of the architecture that you communicate. It has to be consistent and relevant to your brand identity. And brands where it's mismatched, we know it because we call it out and we say, what the hell are they doing commenting about the state of politics? They have no business. Stick to blankets, for instance. Or when we talk about AI, there's certain brands we expect to lead AI. It's not the demon we consider. A brand like Samsung, we expect them to be at the forefront of AI and AI architecture. In fact, that when they aren't, we ask questions around how in tune they are with where marketing next, the consumer next is going. So they can definitely, and they have to, live together, to me, in brands that stand the test of time, that stand the test of trend hopping, of culture, of Gen Z who don't want to watch our ads. Yeah.
Amazing. That's so beautiful. I think you are taking us into your question, but before that, I think for me, the two other concepts that you're introducing is longevity and legacy. It's almost like, you know, if you do these things consistently, you will be in the game for a while. And I think your story of Patagonia reminds me of our very own Sobe, Ian Furr as the founder. I think one of the core principles or values is servant leadership. Like literally, the people that work at Sobe, especially I think when he started, he valued the people, which then extended to customers, where he said, if the product, you can tell that it's our product, it's branded, whether you have a slip or not, if you don't like it and if it doesn't work for you, you get a full refund, which I think is beautiful. That means you trust your customers, you know, and I think it's a very important thing to trust your customers. You know, if a customer says 1, 2, 3, don't say, hi, when did you buy it? You know, it's like interrogating the customers. Now they feel bad, but you know, they try to give you business. So I think there's a thing about putting yourself in the customer's shoes, and whilst you're building authenticity, purpose, keep the customer in mind. And I think I'd like to leave the last question to punchlines, and then we can give the audience an opportunity to ask questions. Nomzamo, I think that's your question. Can brands have it all?
So I think my answer is yes. So brands can have it all, but with the alignment, with the consistency, with being true to your purpose and to your core. So I think you can't be everything to everyone. So when you speak about Sobe, Sobe is not everything to everyone. Why they can offer you the refund is because they trust not only their purpose, their service, from their booking, you know, up until, you know, you leave their store. They're true to that. So you can have it all. I think it's when you're trying to be everything to everyone that you lose, you lose your brand essence. I think often in the marketing space, and there's some very cool marketing prime media ladies here, that we then want to get stuck in trends. Then we want to get stuck in jumping onto this trend or what's happening here. And sometimes your brand is not meant to jump onto trends. Sometimes your brand is not meant to be the latest TikTok video, or your brand is not meant to be the, you know, maybe your brand is not meant to do that. So you have to be aligned to the things that speak to your purpose, as you said, your DNA and your core. And just to share one last, I know we've got a few minutes. This week, and just thinking of this question of can brands have it all, I watched the Martha Stewart documentary on Netflix. And if there's anyone who stayed authentic to who she was, so Martha Stewart was this American Caucasian lady who started off as like a domestic homekeeping, you know, brand, cooking, and you'd see her making custard or muffins or apple pie or whatever the case is. But profit followed because she still stuck it out. She still said, you know, in a male-dominated world, in a you know, kind of like a 90s America world, I'm still going to be the lady who cooks. I'm still going to make motherhood look great. I'm still going to make, you know, being a family or homemaker cool. And she did that through, you know, through all the kind of like the things that could have gone against her. She could have turned around and said, oh, well, let me actually just be a banker, or let me be a Wall Street hun. But she didn't do that. And profit did follow because she became the first then American billionaire, right? So she became the first female billionaire at that time. So when I think of authenticity and when I think of a brand having it all, it's stick to your brand, stick to your purpose. Yes, it might take time, but all great things take time to build, right? So she's a, you know, one of, but she's an example of just how she stuck to her being a home cooker and being a, you know, making cupcakes. And often people refer to her now. So when, you know, somebody says hostess with the mostess, we actually talking about you're the Martha Stewart of, you know, the modern day. So brands can really have it all. And I think there are South African brands that have really got it right, and have got even the authenticity part right, have got the purpose right, have got the profit right, have got the relevance right, and have their ear on the ground. You know, I think we often talk about that. The people in the boardrooms, do they have their ear on the ground? Do they know what their consumers are going through, what time they wake up, where they, you know, where do they how long it takes them to commute to work? So that purpose, profit, and you know, authenticity can live together, but you've really got to be, you know, you've got to do the work to build the brand.
Amazing. So you can be authentic and be purposeful. You'll be profitable. Amazing.
100%.
Nondumiso, your punchline? Can brands have it all?
Yes, brands can have it all if they have courageous leaders.
Courageous leaders. I love that. Sigita?
No, brands can't have it all.
Hectic, I love that.
But you can have it right. You can be boxer and win the lower market and win in you can win in, how can I put it, staple home. You can own the White Star staple home market, but people make a different choice when they want a soft drink, and that's fine. You don't have to be everything to everybody. You have to be everything that is core to your mission, and sometimes that isn't all. Sometimes you will be the forever niche brand. And the more niche you go, the deeper your audience resonates with you and finds you. It's when you try and make yourself a mass brand, when you've gone deep into that niche market. And we know in fashion, brands like Laura Piana that are starting to lose their way because they're starting to open up, right? What made this brand so special is its niche offering. So you cannot have it all, but you can have it right for you as a brand.
Amazing. Amazing. I love that. I just want to say, the ticket price that you paid, ne? It was for this session. Okay. I think to close with your comment, I think one of my best, philosophies when it comes to strategy is that strategy is about, as much as it is about knowing what to do and having plans and having tactics, it's also about knowing what not to do. I think to your point around you cannot have it all. If you've chosen your lane, go after your market, go after your whatever it is, because once you try to please, and sometimes I think, in fact, it's good when people don't like your brand. That means you've decided on something when you're clear. With that said, I think we might be doing good on time. 2 more questions? But it's just 5 minutes. Okay. Thank you.